All right, so this video is about applying, so this is a hovering shadow. And a hovering cast shadow is basically, see this form here, how it's hovering above, and this is the cast shadow. See this form here, it's hovering above, and this is the cast shadow down here. This cast shadow also hits part of this form. And it also, this cast shadow hits part of this form and then comes back down here. Okay. So what are we going to do? This is a complicated process. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to figure out where the ground plane is. The nice thing about this old line here represents the ground plane, because I used to have a cube here, it's gone, but where it was touching the ground, there's a ghost shape of it right here. So I'm going to use that as my guide. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 6 lines parallel to these diagonal lines that are from the sun. And these 6 lines are going to go from this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner, the back corner that you can't even see. I just put a little dot there. This is green. Oh, that's why. Can't tell the difference between green and brown when it's up close. And then back to this corner. So that's 6 altogether, and I'm going to explain or show you what I mean by that. I gotta stand up so I can do this. All right. So I'm making this parallel to, actually, let me see. Parallel to an existing line that I have, that I know is correct, butting this up. And what I'm going to do is put my lines in. So this is the first one. This is the second line. This is the third line. This is the fourth line. This is the fifth line, the back corner. And the back corner is the 6th line. Now there is almost 6 steps to this. It's more like 7, but I skipped the first step, which gets confusing. But in order to start the 6 steps, you have to use this corner here, which is the ground plane ghost line that I was talking about previously. And you have to use a horizontal line, just much like what I'm doing now. Because I'm using a horizontal line for my for my shadow line. But remember what I was talking in the other video about angling it down? Some of you might do that. And if you angle it down, then you have to keep that consistent. So you would have to angle this down. But I'm not angling down. I am going with a straight line. And what I'm going to do here, is I'm just trying to line it up with the bottom of the paper so I know it's straight. Come on, buddy. There we go. So, I don't know if you can see that, but I just drew from that corner all the way over to here, and I'm going to make a dot. So, I don't call that step 1 yet, because the 6 steps is following the cube, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But I call that the step to step 1, right? I guess that's what I'm calling it now. I'm going to angle this. All right, so once I start here, the first part of the shadow represented is this angle here. And if you're representing an angle, not a vertical, an angle, then the line will repeat that same diagonal. So I'm just going to put a diagonal here, and it goes from here to here. So that line represents the beginning of the cast shadow on the ground floor. The next, so first you go from here to here, that's step 1. Step 2 is from here to here. And there's a whole video I have on this that you should watch. Step 2 is from here to here. And I just noticed that my hand is really getting green. Look like Shrek. And I don't want to smear my drawing with all the green, so I'm going to cover this and lean my hand against that. Now, this is step 1. Step 2 is following this line. Whenever you go with a vertical line, it translates as a horizontal line. Unless you angled, like I said before, unless you angled a little bit down from horizontal with your original cast shadow line, then you're going to go with that same diagonal, same as with there. But in this case, I didn't do that, so I'm going to go straight across. Keep things simple. Okay, so from here to here, and if you follow these lines up, it goes from here to here. Okay, so the next line is going to go from here all the way over to there, and that would go from here in the same diagonal to this guy. So it's probably going to come out to about right there, but you can follow that line and it's about right there. So it's from this finger to that finger. And it's parallel to any line going in this direction. So what I'm going to do is I have my ruler over and I'm just making a line parallel to an existing line, and I can just kind of run this across. Yeah, that was good. Okay. Now, you might say, eventually this shape's going to look like a distorted geometric football, and I'm going to come back around. I'm going to draw right on top of this cube. It's fine. Don't worry about that. So the next thing I'm going to do is this. So basically, I went from here, here, and here. So I'm halfway done. I have to go across now, across the back. And because I'm going on a diagonal, in this way or that way, I follow the same diagonal. So I'm going to go from here, and I follow this line, and I end it at that line. So it's going to go from here to about here. Okay? So you can kind of see that line there. It goes from there to there. It stopped at that angle, and it was the same, and it was parallel to any of these other lines. Next thing I'm going to do is, you can't see this, but the transparent back corner from here to that point here, and I have that line in there, so I'm going to make a perfectly horizontal line across. And again, if you put a diagonal in, then you put the diagonal in instead of a horizontal line. All right, so I'm going to line this up with something that I can see that's horizontal. All right, so I'm going to go across. Perfect. So I'm there in my back. And now, this is the easy part. I come full circle to where I started from. And in theory, it's supposed to be parallel to everything that you have from before. So see this line here? This should be parallel to it. All they did was just close the gap, and I connected the original point. And this is what I mean by a geometric football that's distorted. Okay, so what I do now is I fill it in with my green. And an important thing here is that when you fill this in, don't overlap this other part that's green. You're just going to go right up next to it, and it's all going to be one even tone in terms of value. I know I told you guys to go in this direction, and I'm going against what I've said, but it's okay. I don't love how that turned out, but should have went in the other direction. Okay, so there's the shadow of this thing, and okay, so it took me a minute to really figure this out. I was staring at it for a minute. So because the light source is coming in here, the upper part of this is going to be dark, right? So see this diagonal line right here, which is the back corner of that? It's also the front of this plane. So I'm going to fill this in right here. Okay, that's the shadow that's coming from the back. But do you see where this shadow here meets the edge of that form? And this is where things can get confusing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little dot. And I'm going to draw a line straight up along this plane until it meets that line. And it just so happens it meets it where that diagonal line is. That's just random. Oh, actually, no, that doesn't. It meets it a little bit to the left. Okay, and now I'm going to put this guy in. So this is now the shadow that exists there. And yes, there's a prevalent outline of that original football shape, but that's fine. That will just kind of fade away eventually. And there's one more shadow that I haven't put in yet, and that's the one that's back here. I'm going to put that in now. But how do I find that? Because I don't have the ground plane. So for example, you can kind of see this right here, right? Or this little shadow here. I have to put that here. I could do one of two things. I could just measure and mark it and just be like, it looks like it's about right there. Or I could draw this as if I'm putting it on a ground plane. I think I'm going to go that route. Let's see here. So I'm going to take this line, bring it over there. And when it meets this guy, it's going to go over here. And when it meets this, then I can put my line back in. So I'm doing all this work to find this little tiny line. It's right here. And there you go. Now I can put this little tiny corner in. All that work for that one thing. Okay, so there you are. These shadows are all finished. I will say, once we get to these other ones, like when I fill this in, this is going to cast a shadow on top of this guy, but it's also going to cast a shadow on the ground plane. So it's going to hit this and go down to the ground plane. But for now, that's all I want to do until the next video.